All right, guys, you are inside an R33 GT-R, and I'm going to show you around. So I am quite familiar with this car because I've owned a previous version of it a while back, but it's actually really comfortable and really roomy. So first off, we have to talk about the seats. The seats are really epic. They're pretty much the first of their kind as far as the way that they look, the way that they feel. But for the driver and the passenger, you feel really snug. The only downfall is if you like tacos or if you really like good food and you got some big love handles, they're gonna hug you or your love handles are gonna kind of spill out. But either way, they're really neat. All right, so with a lot of the 90s cars, if you've noticed with the Supra, the RX-7, and mostly all the 90 cars, the dash and pretty much everything is driver orientated. So if you look at the angle of the dash and all the instruments and everything and all the buttons, it's faced towards the driver. So the passenger essentially has a blank canvas. Like there's nothing over there for the passenger, I mean, except they've got a switch for their window, up and down window. But for the driver, we've got everything set up. So one of the things that people always ask me about, is it weird shifting with your left hand? Absolutely not. It feels normal. The only thing is that you do different movements, and Elise brought up a good video we're gonna do. We're gonna actually drive a left-hand drive car and drive a right-hand drive car, and we're gonna overlay both of them so you can see how different the hand movements are when you're driving the different sides. But as far as the car goes, it's pretty self-explanatory. Look at this, guys. This is super rare in today's world. You know, all the e-brakes are electronic now, and you know, a nice mechanical e-brake is awesome. You have your shifter right here. This is where your cigarette lighter goes, but I have to have my ejectocito button because, you know, you just have to. Of course, you have an ashtray. Now, this was real popular and real common in most cars back in this era because, you know, smoking wasn't frowned upon now like it is now, but essentially it's this is what you have here for an ashtray, and it was very common to have one of those. And then we have our radio. So essentially the radio is, I installed this radio, it's literally brand new, and I love it because I'm a big music buff and I want to modernize anything I can when it comes to something that I enjoy. So I haven't adjusted the colors, but essentially I'll probably do a red and a black or just an all white. But yeah, that's new. And then we get to our climate control. Now this was ahead of its time because this climate control is essentially, we're gonna do auto, it's digital. So, you know, it had an auto setup for it, cold, hot, and a digital display. And it used this, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's like this little grow here. Essentially, it took the ambient temperature, and if you put it on auto, it would adjust it, turn it on and off, the blower and everything, to get it to that temperature that you want. And that's pretty neat because before that, you know, in the 80s and the 70s, you know, majority of the cars were just mechanical knobs. So this is really cool, and I like it because it just, you know, it's easy to use. Now, on the GT-R specific, you get these 3 gauges, and they're really, really cool. Now, first off, you got your boost, and for me, or for us American guys, I gotta use my cell phone to do some conversions here because this is, you know, essentially in times 100 mmHg. Okay, so then this is the most important part for me because I baby my cars. So essentially, this part right here is going to be your oil temperature, and you want to keep track of that, especially when you start the car and you're driving it. You want to make sure that that temperature, you know, before you start beating on it or driving spiritedly, that, you know, it's up to the temperature and everything. Now this front torque gauge right here, believe it or not, I thought it was broken, and I reached out to Grant, who sold me the car, and I was like, it's not working. And essentially the car is really rear-wheel drive, and it kicks in all-wheel drive when you're really pushing it. And so you really have to push the car to really get that front torque gauge to even show anything. We've got our defroster, real common. We got our hazard lights, and we've got our clock. You got to know what time it is. And then we come over here, and this is a blank space, so this would probably be an option for someone out there, and you know, I don't know, you could probably put a button there or anything like that. But then we come over here for you guys can see, and we have our windshield wipers. And for you American drivers out there, this is the first switch you hit when you start learning how to drive right-hand drive car. You hit this because you think it's the blinker, and you hit the windshield wipers, which is funny. And then we come over here and you've got your gauge cluster. The thing about this is that these gauge clusters, they could really be very intricate, very cool. You could actually make them, you could get like the Nismo ones and everything, and with a lot more colors or white faces. So this is your standard GT-R gauge cluster. And what I love about it is it goes up to 10,000 RPMs from the factory, which shows that, but it goes up to 8,000 RPMs. But I like that they got it all the way to 10 to kind of give it that more aggressive look. Your speedometer is in kilometers, which is always fun, especially when you're driving, because you get a little confused. But you essentially, what Grant told me and what Elise and I have figured out too now is that you essentially divide it and then add 10. So if you're doing 120, you divide it, add 10, so you're probably doing between 60 and 70 essentially. And then you have your water gauge, your fuel gauge, and then you have your oil pressure gauge, which is very important. And what I love about the GT-R is that you have two of the most important gauges from the factory, and that's going to be your oil pressure and your oil temperature. Those are so important. And of course your coolant temperature is important, but you really want to keep an eye on that. I don't know if you guys can see this. We'll do a little overlay video for you guys here, but this button is for the fold-in mirrors. They fold in and they fold out. And then we have a coin slot here for coins over there. And then we have a coin slot over here as well. And it almost looks like this is just a little compartment, storage compartment, which many people use for a drink, but you got to be careful because that's kind of shallow. And then we come over to the driver's side kind of panel over here, and we have the command switch for the windows. We have auto switch, which I love, auto down, auto up. And then we have the switch down, and then you have lockout. So in case you fart and you want to lock out the passenger from rolling down the window, you could do that as well. And then you have the button to lock doors as well. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the back, and you guys are going to have fun because we're going to tell you about the back seats a little bit. And Elise is going to show you guys how she fits back there. All right, so let's find out how Elise fits back there. Now, Elise is 5'11", and let me tell you, how do you fit back there, Elise?
I'm in.
Yeah?
Got some space between myself and the front seat.
Okay, so look at that. So the seat is pretty much almost back. And is your feet hitting? Here, let's open up the door.
They are not.
Look at that. It looks like it from the camera, but there you go. I got a better angle. It is not touching. And I kind of knew that from owning a Skyline a few years back, that essentially it's pretty big. So you guys could see that is her leg room. And the seats they're kind of like bucketed in, right?
They are. There is a bit of a bucket feel back here as well.
So, I mean, are you comfortable?
I am. No, it's a good, like, it's not too hard, not too soft, and there is that little bit of cushion. And I've got space that I could move my arms around if I need to. As far as the edges, I'm not riding up against the edge of the car or anything, so no, it's a nice fit.
And I'll tell you right now, this has way more room than the Supra. You could not do this with the Supra, I guarantee you that. Well, guys, thanks for following us with our tour. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
And make sure you stay tuned for some more GT-R videos. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will talk to you soon.